Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Omkar Pimple, who's the founder, CEO at Myracle, which is working on transforming education. He has been an engineering leader in technology companies across education, banking, health, e-commerce, and logistics. A brain and puzzle app that he built as a hobby project has crossed over 5 million downloads across 180 plus countries. So, Omkar, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. You have been in banking, healthcare, e-commerce, logistics, fintech, fashion tech, and now you're transitioning into education. What was the nudge? What made you? What was the problem that you're solving with education?
Sure. Thank you, Eddie, for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here and to share thoughts, ideas, and experiences with the XROM community as well. So what is maybe not very well known for many people is that education was something that I was always doing on the side. So as I was working as a professional in the software sector, I was also moonlighting, that's a very common term these days, as an academic researcher in the fields of, at the intersection of technology, immersive technology specifically, and learning science and learning psychology, like the science of how people absorb and transmit knowledge. One of the core problems that exists in education today is to be able to do hands-on education scalably. Because everyone complains about their students and children having only theoretical knowledge, not getting hands-on experience, not getting experiential education opportunities for it. And we've identified some challenges over there. That one of them is the scalability of it. Experiential education with the current methods does not scale. And that's the problem that we sought out to solve with our background in technology. And that's basically what we do at Myracle.io.
Super. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? Because you mentioned about you leveraging mobile tech, and right now, and truly, I think that is the interface which has become completely democratized. I think anyone and everyone has a mobile phone, but we soon should be or could be transitioning from carrying a technology to wearing technology. Going from mobile to a wearable. Elaborate a little bit more about the problem and how are you solving this through mobile tech or your approach?
Let's take a typical school, maybe in a large city or even in a smaller, let's say, town or village. You'll have 100 students on average in, let's say, 9th or 10th grade. Let's take a sample size of 100. These 100 students are expected to basically understand and learn about science, for example. And the equipment, lab materials, lab personnel are very, very limited. As a specific example, you'll have typically one microscope in a science lab for 100 students. And of course, all those 100 students are not going to be able to actually play around with that microscope because microscopes are expensive, they're delicate. And students are students, right? So you, as a school, it becomes hard for you to provide the facilities for each student to practice, to learn from mistakes, and to sort of do things hands-on. So naturally, the result of that is that you either have no science practical science and you only have maybe videos or just theoretical lectures, or you'll have group lectures, group sessions, basically, of with science labs, where you have a bunch of students that are watching a teacher performing the procedure and the experiment. And effectively, you haven't created or cultivated a curiosity in the learner. Rather, you've created like a sense of fear of science for the student, because the student has always been told, oh, don't touch this, that is dangerous, or don't touch that, that is delicate. So there is no way the student is going to be interested in learning more about science because their curiosity has not been taken care of. So with Myracle, we changed this. We changed this by transforming any physical space into an interactive exhibition or a science lab. So think transforming your living room into a full science lab, which has all the equipment, all the tools, all the materials for you to practice procedures, understand how these procedures are used in the actual real world. So by the time you step into a physical science lab, you're very well prepared with the steps, the procedures, the materials, the safety instructions, and everything else. And we do it in a gamified way. So basically, think if Fortnite, Pokemon Go, and your CBSE textbook, if they had a baby together, Myracle.io would be what is born. So I think words can't do justice to what we've built. So I encourage you, the listeners, to try it out and see it for yourself in your own living rooms and bedrooms, how Myracle transforms it into a science lab. And we do this through everyday mobile devices because we believe that access is a crucial problem in education today, access to infrastructure. So and I love wearables and I love all the emerging technology that's coming out. At the same time, I think it will take a few years until it becomes familiar. Everyone becomes familiarized to it. Everyone has access to it. So until then, we have technology that we carry in our pockets that is capable of doing similar things already. So that's what we are doing. We're getting people into this kind of immersive world and then taking things forward from there.
Super, completely. I'm a double whatever you said, because today we already have the interface which can give you those kind of experiences, and the HMDs obviously currently have a whole lot of problems besides the price point itself, and the availability. And today I think mobile is something which is used by anyone and everyone, right from the guy who possibly sells a kirana shop to a newspaper vendor. Everybody's got a mobile, and it is a tool, if correctly leveraged, can possibly play a role in not just education, but other industries also. So of what I hear from you, you have created an augmented reality app, and you've created this tool which allows anybody and everybody to create a lab, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a student. You can interact with possibly the equipment without having the fear of, say, somebody saying, oh, please don't touch it, it's too expensive, you'll end up breaking it. So you'll be able to kind of see the virtual version of those products in your environment. Where is it being used? Which are there any institutes which are currently using it? B, what has been the reaction from the students specifically of using an AR application? C, what's the price point?
Mm-hmm. Great, good set of questions. I'm going to tackle them one by one. So maybe what I'd like to add over here is augmented reality is, of course, the basis of what we do. But there are many terms out there: mixed reality, extended reality, and so on. What I like to think is we are able to seamlessly blend two realities. So we're mixing realities. Basically what the MetaQuest Pro, for example, is able to do with pass-through. So we are able to do this on everyday mobile devices. So you are not only just visualizing, so we're not limited to visualization only, which is the classic AR use case, but the object manipulation, a virtual object being manipulated in the physical world around you. So being able to pick up a tool from a virtual table from your lab, go to the other room and place it on a physical table in the other room, and come back to your virtual table in the first room. That is something that we are able to make possible with the technology that we have built. So you can realize that with this sort of an approach, students are taking part in the creation process of the learning experience for themselves, because they are choosing the environment, they are choosing the context for themselves, and they can become very creative with it. Imagine setting up a microscope lab in a beautiful park, underneath at the foothills of a mountain. That is very uncharacteristic. You won't typically have an outdoors lab like that, but with Myracle, you are able to do it. You're able to capture footage of it, you're able to capture a video of it, share it with your friends, and that becomes something new, that becomes something unique. The student being empowered to take part in the creation process in the learning journey is something very subtle, but very powerful. Secondly, from a scientific angle, what we also do is we are able to stimulate not just the visual sense, but also auditory, haptic, and kinesthetic senses. So because multiple human senses are triggered and stimulated, there is a stronger likelihood of the student remembering it, because all of their senses have been involved. So this way, like taking education from memorization to making it memorable is basically the transformation that we are heralding. Right now, there are a few schools that have already started using this in the classroom. We started with Vidyanidhi High School in Mumbai. That's the school that I spent 12 years of my life in. So from kindergarten until 10th grade, I was lucky to have great teachers over there. And we launched our first Myracle experiences over in the classroom in September 2022. So about 4-5 months ago now at Vidyanidhi High School. And the reactions were just tremendous. I mean, we also did a quantitative research about the effects of Myracle in the classroom. And we did structure of atom, classic 9th and 10th grade topic in K-12, right? And before the Myracle session, we asked the students, so how many of you, what's the level of understanding you have of this topic so far? Because the topic was already covered in the classroom. And the science teacher was sitting in the last bench in that session. So, in front of the teacher, the students were like, yeah, we maybe understand maybe 4 or 5 out of 10 of the entire topic. After the Myracle session of that topic, we asked the same question to the students again. And almost all of them said, yeah, now we understand it fully. We get it. Like we can say that we get 9 out of 10 or even 10 of 10 of the topic. And we also conducted objective assessments after the session, and we got some very promising results from it as well. Like many students scored 7, 8, 9, and some of them also scored 10 on 10 on the quizzes afterwards. So we have quite some evidence as well about the academic efficacy of this method, apart from just the shiny nature of AR/VR. We want to make sure that the technology is one thing, but the pedagogy is also on point. So since then, we've also reached out to a few more schools. We're very early stage in the discussions for several schools, but there are a few school organizations and school groups, especially in Mumbai and Pune, that we are already working with. And from a price point perspective, we want to make sure that this is accessible. Whether it's a high-end school with very high fees, let's say, and for people who only can afford it if they're rich, or for a school that is maybe serving a broader part of society where maybe not everyone has the financial capability to have high fees. So the price point that we're looking at is in the range of 20 to 30,000 per year per school account, essentially, as a demonstration tool in the classroom. So at the very least, students are able to see and some of them are able to do it themselves in the classroom using Myracle. So that's the range. And of course, there are many features and add-ons that can be made more, can be added onto it, and the price can change, but the base price is in that price range. And you make it very modular in the sense that even if you need only a part of what Myracle offers, then accordingly the price can be reduced. So it's a pay-as-you-go model.
Super, Omkar. Wish you and your team the very best.
Thank you.
What grade is this content for? Does the content keep on getting upgraded? What's the content bank?
I don't like the word content very much because it is. I don't know. It has been cheapened a bit lately. So I like to use the word experiences, and because they're learning experiences that we construct. And our learning experiences map to the CBSE curriculum, essentially, for the 9th and 10th grade science subjects. So typically there are about 12 to 15 chapters, let's say, in the science subject per grade. So we're focusing on 9th and 10th grade for now, and then we have some use cases for higher education as well that we work on as projects. But primarily, we are focusing on these 25 to 30 chapters for which we have learning experiences for. So for the next academic year, which starts in about May 2023, so the academic year 23-24, we already have a lot of schools that have signed up for using Myracle in the classroom.
I truly believe that experiential education is the future, where you give the tools in the hand of the students, to create and learn, because, that's the only way you learn. So I think the future is looking super, super bright. Now, if there are some entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast and who want to kind of build something like this, what would be your advice to them? And possibly while you are at it, maybe talk about, while you're building the startup, what kind of challenges you faced and how you overcame them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very good time to be an entrepreneur right now. As counterintuitive as it may sound, with the market and especially the capital markets being a bit cautious, if you're able to bootstrap your company now in the next, let's say, 1 year until 2024, maybe mid of 2024, then you'll be in a position where you've built something that is truly required by the market. Because when times are difficult, spending also goes down. Like you read reports every day about SaaS spending going down, jobs being cut and so on. So generally the world is in cost cutting mode at the moment. So in a cost cutting time, if you are able to build something that people are still willing to pay for, then you build something that is truly, truly, truly a painkiller. And I think now is the best time to know whether you're building something that is a painkiller. Because 2 years ago, when cash was abundant in the market, all kinds of startups were built, all kinds of proposed value propositions were out there. But in the end, most of them fizzled out because the market showed its true sort of judgment of these kind of products. Now is that time when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So that's that's what I would say to entrepreneurs. But at the same time, like every day, there are days when, as an entrepreneur, as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, I would say there are times when you're like, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. I don't know if I should put in the effort, time, money, and everything else, all the resources into this. There will be days like that. There will be days where one bad client call or one, unhappy moment, let's say, can pull your entire day and your entire mission at risk. And I think at that time, it's also about knowing that this is momentary and it's a roller coaster. Like you'll have lows and you'll have very high highs and you'll have very low lows. But I think if you can keep it together across a period of time, it averages out, and it averages generally positively, is what I've seen, especially if you're building something valuable. And finally, I would say that if we build in, like most people think, oh, we are AR, VR company. I like to think that we are in the business of transmitting knowledge memorably. That's what we do. That's why we exist. And AR, VR is just one means of doing that. And I think one should not use, or the technology should not be the basis of existence for a company or for your mission, right? And technology is just the means to solve a problem. So focus on that problem, and to know and sort of crystallize a problem, get to know people. I think that's something that I learned as a tech guy. I learned maybe the hard way even, that in the end it boils down to people and what is it that they need, what is it that they want, what is it that they don't have, and what is it that they struggle with today. And I think a lot of it boils down to just sitting down and having a person-to-person, a human interaction, to then understand this and then apply technology to that problem. So I don't know if I was able to answer your question effectively.
Completely, Omkar. I guess most of the startups today are building startups with a tech right in the front, because when a tech is in hype cycle, so they promote that as the product in itself. But like you rightfully pointed out, tech should be behind. I mean, nobody wants to really know what a metaverse is, or augmented reality, or a generative AI is. If through it, somewhere down the line, I mean, as a consumer or as a brand, it solves a certain problem of mine, or if I can, get one step ahead, maybe learning or experiencing something, I think that's really cool, because today, I mean, we have a computer in a pocket, but nobody looks at it or talks about it like, oh, we got a computer. It's a mobile. You end up using it, and I guess that's where a great product will come out, where tech itself is not in the background. What it does when it touches lives, and that's when it'll really make an impact. If you had to give out a pitch to possibly teachers, maybe institutes, or maybe VCs listening into it, to this podcast, what do you have to say?
For teachers and principals, I would say, I think the world today is changing faster than any of us have anticipated. Like, it's until 1 year ago, 2 years ago, there was a lot of buzz around AI, but there was a lot of developments also around the AI in the AI sector. But from today, from 1 week to the other, like things are changing so rapidly, so quickly. Like even seasoned tech veterans have sort of, raised their hands and they're like, yeah, okay, I can't keep up anymore with what is happening in the world. So I think this is the world that Gen Alpha right now is growing up in. These are people who are in, like, they're like a sponge right now. They are able to absorb this at the pace that this is happening. We are not anymore, right? People who are, let's say, above 25, 30, or whatever. Um, so, and Gen Alpha is the generation that has also grown up or has been actually born with technology. If you think about it, like people who are 13, 15 now, they actually learned how to use mobile devices before maybe they learned how to speak. So they've learned to communicate digitally before they learn to communicate verbally. I think that's a philosophically significant shift in how we function as a society, as a species. I think that we should not undermine. And I think that's something that we should really consider. That was not our reality, right? But it is the reality of the generation of today, which is the ones that we're educating. So in this attention economy, how can education compete? Because it has to. Otherwise, it becomes difficult for both the educators as well as the students. So how can teachers and educators sort of keep up with this? So keeping up is one thing, but also being smart about it is another. It's not about the old versus new. It's more about how can the things that worked in methods of the past can be supercharged, superpowered with means of today, so that we can build the education and the generation of tomorrow. I think that's a crucial discussion to have. And we actually have hundreds of conversations every month with teachers, educators, principals. So we're very happy for teachers, educators, principals who would like to learn about how they can take things to the next level. So please feel free to reach out to me and to our team, and we'd be very happy to have this conversation and consult also on how things can be taken to the next level. For investors, I'm going to try to keep it short. Investors have also, we've been speaking to quite a few of them. And at this stage, we are building at the intersection of social impact and innovation, two very important factors in the society of tomorrow. And of course, we have something that can be applied beyond just education to several other use cases. And we've already worked on some projects right from at companies like drone companies, satellite companies, logistics, infrastructure companies, very specific training and development projects that are not classical education, but still involve transmission of knowledge memorably. So the scope is infinite for what we've built. And if this is something that excites you, this space, then reach out. And we already are actually raising some funds at the moment. We plan to close around in the next couple of months. So if you're interested and if you want to invest in this kind of technology and you invest in our background and our team, then do reach out as well.
Super, Omkar. Yeah, I think it's so profound, how you put it, that, the world is completely changing. Gen Alpha, the way they consume has completely changed. They are digital native. They understand, like my son who's 7.5, he's going to be 8 years old in month March. He's on the comp. He understands computer, like, I mean, at the back of his fingers. He understands it much better than me or my wife. And that's what I think needs to be. We need to take note of that. Whether it's businesses or education. It's completely changing, and now we need to create whatever we're doing, so that we are in track with how they are consuming. Now, for those people you said, to reach out to you, but if they want to reach out to you, where best can they reach out to you?
Well, I can. You can always reach out at welcome@myracle.io. That's our email. I personally monitor that email, so if I get an email on this email, I'm the one who will be responding. So I like to keep in touch with our community of fraternity personally, because, like I said, it starts with the people, right? So you can feel free to reach out at welcome@myracle.io. So I'll be there. I'm also available on LinkedIn. I'm very friendly. I don't bite. So feel free to reach out on any of these channels, and happy to have a conversation, of course. One thing that maybe I'd like to add, Eddie, to what you just mentioned about your son being 8 or so now and being so savvy with technology, right? So I don't know if you saw this video recently about homework being completely automated by a combination of ChatGPT and a 3D printer writing on a piece of paper. And like, what's the role of homework in this kind of a world? I think that's something that we need to reevaluate also.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, my last question, Omkar, to you is that, because the entire generative AI, uh, text to whatever, image, text to speech, text to music, text to video, text to code is really in the hype cycle. Text to search, with ChatGPT 3 going bonkers, like in, I think, 5 days, it got 1 million subscribers. And then I think up till now, it's got some 100 million subscribers. And how do you think the future of education is going to look like? Possibly maybe talk about what you're doing through AR and through possibly, things like these generative AI tech stack. How do you think the future of education is going to look like?
So I think education is being disrupted for the last few years now, at a different pace perhaps. But I see that the next 2 to 5 years will see a pace that is unprecedented of disruption. So ChatGPT, for example, that's the hot topic in everywhere these days. So let's take that example, right? I think ChatGPT will make it a lot easier to do review research papers. So in research, you have original research and you often have review research papers where you basically are just going through existing bodies of research, summarizing that and adding your perspective on that topic. So I think with ChatGPT, that becomes a lot easier, and you're able to learn about a new topic fairly fast, or at least the latest happenings and the latest ongoings. Now, ChatGPT is not 100% accurate. It's not meant to be. No human is 100% accurate. So it's hard to expect a human-made machine to be accurate. But I think it's often fairly on point, and it can support you for a lot of things. Like, I use ChatGPT personally for quite a lot of things. I use it to summarize a podcast transcript that I might do with someone, So what is the most important points that AI thinks could be valuable for other people? These are the kind of things that in the end, the human is making the decision, but it's assisted by AI. I think that's the world that we will live in. I don't think AI will replace humans in the way that many people fear and think. I think humans that use AI to supercharge their own abilities are the ones who will replace other humans who don't. So I think that's something that is the profound change that I expect to sort of see in the upcoming years. And now it's all accessible. Like, everyone has access to ChatGPT, whether you're on mobile device, laptop, computer, or not. So I think it has truly democratized access to these kind of tools. And I think the games are just going to be more interesting now, is what I see.
Super. Omkar, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Yes, there's some great things happening in the space of every single industry. And this whole thing is like, I mean, you need to somehow, it's a double-edged sword in some ways, because, I mentioned about my son being 8 years old. Now he's, onto the computer, so there's one side where I know that, I mean, you cannot do without it, because that's where the future generation is going. But the other side, the downside is, I mean, is that screen time too much, and where does that, so we are, I think it cannot be extreme left or extreme right, some always I think it's somewhere in the middle. The truth is in the middle. So I hope that we come to build this world where whatever we're doing through all of these tech stack, we build products, services, and solutions, which is human first. And so wish you and your team the very best for Myracle. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Omkar.
Thank you so much, Eddie.